Okay, I can see some of you still coming in, so we're going to get started. Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today. Thank you for joining us. You just joined She Can Code's live webinar called Succeeding in a Startup Environment. I'm your host for today, Kaylee Bateman, the Managing Director, Community and Partnerships at She Can Code. For those tuning in who aren't familiar with us, She Can Code is a free collaborative community working together to tackle the tech gender gap. You can join our community platform to find a supportive network of like-minded individuals, new opportunities and guidance to help you to excel in your tech career. Now, before I introduce our speakers, please note we have a live Q&A session running throughout today. So please submit your questions throughout this session and we will get to them at the end. So let's kick off with my wonderful guests for today. I have a fabulous panel. I have Louise Doyle, co-founder and CEO of Needi, and I also have Sarah Skelton, Managing Director and co-founder of Flourish. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
We're going to get started with a little bit about each of you, if that's okay, to set the scene for our listeners. Louise, can we start with you?
Absolutely, yeah. Hi, so lovely to be here today. Thank you so much. I'm Lou. I'm co-founder of Needi. We are a corporate gifting concierge service that uses psychology and AI to match the perfect gift to your recipients from the best local independent businesses. And I think we were speaking very briefly before about our journey and how we got into tech. And mine was completely by accident. I did not take apart Hoovers and I did not do any of the really clever stuff that a lot of people in the industry do. I fell into it by accident after working with my co-founder for about 10 years in the travel industry. We spied a problem, which was the fact that we wanted to motivate and engage all of our staff around the world on a small budget. And Etsy, not on the high street, Amazon, all those things weren't cutting it when it came to, to local gifts and to giving them things that they wanted. So we decided we wanted to go out and do it for ourselves. So we got into the tech industry because we had a really passionate desire to change the way that people are gifting and to do amazing local independent gifts that are good for the planet and good for people. And we knew that using technology to do that would be the answer. And that's how we got into the industry.
I love that. I love hearing different stories of how people fall into tech, because it usually comes from a need for something. Like you said, it's not everybody wakes up every morning and thinks, oh, you know what, I'm really good at tech. I'm going to go into tech. I'm going to take a computer science degree and I know exactly what I want to do. But a lot of it comes from, I saw a need for something and found my way in that way. So you're not on your own. A lot of our community have found their way into tech in weird and wonderful ways. Sarah, what about you?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So a little bit similar to Lou, definitely in the falling into it. I am the founder of a business called Flourish. And what we do specifically is match early career, high potential candidates with organisations that are looking to attract, retain and grow their sales teams. So in one sense, we're part recruitment, we're part sales development and training, but predominantly my clients for the last 25 years have been in the tech space. So I'm sort of hoping that some of your audience who are perhaps looking to make that break into tech, maybe the first or second jobbers that are listening, will resonate with some of the things that I can talk about. Because when I started out way back when, I actually did want to get into tech and wanted to get into sales, but went to this brilliant organisation that hired me. They were supposed to get me the job, but they were like, do you want to come and work for us? And I thought, well, this looks quite good. And I spent 23 years there. So I actually joined a startup, went 23 years with them until the point that they sold. And when I left, they were literally a multi-billion, even not million, global organization. And then last year I founded Flourish and I've started from scratch doing my own thing.
Amazing. Hopefully your staff will be with you 23 years. You never know.
That is the plan. They're not allowed to leave. I've made them sign a contract.
That's the condition of coming in. Amazing. I'd love to hear more about that today, because we've got lots of questions to dip into those sorts of things about what it's like to work at a startup, challenges and opportunities. So Yeah, we have so much to cover today, ladies. So we're gonna get cracking with Lou. I'd love to start with you and ask you, how have you personally navigated the challenges of gender diversity in the tech startup environment, and what advice would you give to women entering this field?
I really like this question because I think as we were going through all of this initially, I don't think we almost realised quite all of the barriers that we were up against initially. The mentality that myself and my business partner Steph have, which I know is jumping onto the advice straight away, but would have is sometimes, as long as you are so focused on what your end goal is, then if you share that with somebody, like I'm able to share that with Steph, then sometimes a lot of the stuff that you do face is kind of like water off a duck's back because you can use each other to kind of, navigate your way through to kind of get to the end goal. But let's kind of be real about it. Like, I'm a non-technical background. I've got 3 young kids. Steph and I are learning as we go along. Getting into the tech industry did mean that we were, I think the word we used to use a lot was highly underestimated, let's say, at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think what we both agreed was that actually being underestimated, you can take that in 2 ways, right? You can either let that kind of like get to you a little bit, so it can become a chip on the shoulder, or it can mean that you over explain things because you want to be proven. We took it the other way. We decided it was actually a superpower. And we decided that being underestimated in the tech industry meant that it offered us an opportunity to really like over deliver and really exceed expectations. And that's kind of what we did. We knew we didn't have that background. So when we decided to create a tech startup, which obviously seemed a bit crazy to both of our husbands at the time, we joined, actually, it was a Silicon Valley backed accelerator, tech accelerator called the Founder Institute. And we went on to that. And what that did was give us a step-by-step guide on exactly how to start a business in the tech industry. It opened the doors to loads of contacts that I'm sure, Sarah, you've got from your experience within there that we had none of when we were starting up, initially. And we graduated as the top graduates from the London cohort, which we couldn't believe because we were the only non-technical founders. So I suppose, how did we navigate it? We were pretty ballsy about it, and we were like, no, we've got our vision, we're sticking with it, and we're using each other. And then we really educated ourselves quickly, and embedded ourselves within that tech community. And from that, we created a lot of ambassadors who have then since then helped us to grow the business.
Yeah, amazing. And I love the fact that you just said then we were the only non-technical founders. Like, that was on your mind, like when we weren't non-techie. And there are so many people in our community that say the same thing, where they're like, yeah, but I can't work in tech because I'm non-technical. Actually, it really just depends on why you're here in the first place.
Yeah. Completely. And it's the diversity that's what makes it all work so well, that we found that, we brought a really different perspective and different skill set to the tech industry that we're working in than others could. And I think it's being, you're right, being brave and being confident that actually diversity really does matter in that situation.
Yes.
And I would add, if I can, that I think skill is trainable in every sense. Like, it's about having the attitude, having and seeing the opportunity. And Lou and I haven't met before, so I don't want to like insult you and assume that we're of the same age, but assuming we might be of similar-ish age, what I love now is how many young individuals I meet want to get into tech, and actually how many tech businesses are really trying to be much more diverse, much more inclusive, bring more women in. I think the advice I would give when I think back to 25 years ago when I started out, I felt like I had to sort of almost behave like a man in that environment to be seen and to be heard. And actually now what I think of is, I just want people to know, like, it's good to be authentic, and it's good to know that you're in the room for a reason. And I think try and surround yourself with like-minded people, and also join communities like this one and others where you can learn and get ideas. We're at Flourish setting up a community ourselves called Females Who Flourish. And the idea is that we can share ideas and we can share knowledge and we can hopefully inspire and educate. So they would sort of be my tips. Just be true to yourself and trust that you deserve to be in the room and have that opportunity.
Yes, I love that. You're so right. And Lou, you kind of touched upon that with like seeing it as a superpower. But you're absolutely right, Sarah, because at some expos that we've been at, we've been approached from startup companies who come up to us and say, you know what, I'd really love to work with a community like you, but you know, in terms of becoming like a corporate ambassador, we don't have any budget for that, or like, can we talk about how we could, you know, somehow work with you? Because it's already on their minds that they have to do that from the start, and they say, I want to make sure that that's in our DNA as we get started as a company, instead of becoming a big company and then saying we're not diverse. So it tends to be, we get approached by founders who are saying, oh, you know what, I'd love to just find a way that we can partner somehow now whilst we're still quite small and looking for, you know, investors, just to make sure that diversity is built into our company from the ground up. And then you have that visibility, like we were saying, you have those people in those roles already, and then it attracts others into that business as well. Sarah, could you share an example of a pivotal moment in your startup journey where embracing innovation or agile methodologies significantly contributed to your company's success?
Yes, that's a big question, isn't it?
It's a very wordy question.
Yeah, it's quite a wordy question. I don't know, again, if Lou's experienced the same here, but what I found to be really exciting in the startup journey is actually it's easier to be innovative when you're building than it is when I say exited from my past business, where it's already fully scaled, it's global, like change is a lot harder to make. And so I think when we came to market with Flourish, I felt really confident that I knew there was a place for us, and I felt like I knew from my experience what businesses were wanting. So we had that purpose, but it was like, how do we do it differently? How do we innovate? What's missing? And for me, one of the most exciting innovations I think that we've brought to the table is actually partnering with a business called HumanOS. And if the founder, Bianca, is listening to this, I can only apologise if I don't do her justice in explaining it as well. But it's quite a nice story. So about 11 years ago, I placed Bianca as a fresh grad into an IT organisation. And she went into sales and she was really successful. But after a few years, wanted to set up for something herself, retrained and founded HumanOS. And we'd kept in touch. And so when I founded Flourish, I thought this feels like a really good fit, because what we're trying to do is not just get individuals into these tech organizations and like, that's it, off you go. We want to holistically support them. And what HumanOS does, it's a tech platform that provides well-being, that essentially people can access world-class coaches to draw down on, whether it's mental health, stress, burnout, nutrition, fitness, and in our case, also sales coaching and professional development. And so I think for us, the innovation there was actually finding something that felt like it added to the purpose. It was really needed in the market, but it was unique, and you don't go to any old recruitment business and get that sort of support post your placement. So that was probably the biggest thing, I think.
Yes, I love that. And as well, being mindful of when you're small, you can do that. How fast things can change and how innovative you can be when you're still a small and agile company. And as an employee at a startup, that must be quite exciting to be in a business like yours that is moving that quick, where you can partner in that way and make change that quick. Because sometimes when you're in a company that isn't changing, or it's incredibly hard to bring in any type of change, that's mentally, you're not there very long. I mean, you were at a company 23 years, Sarah. You must have, they must have changed quite a bit. You sounds like you were never bored.
I mean, the thing is, again, everybody, I suppose it depends on the stage of your life. I wasn't bored. I did stay a long time, but the last 10 years I worked part-time. I'd had my daughter. And actually what was brilliant was when you're in a comfortable position and you know what you're doing. And then Lou, we've been talking about kids together before we joined, you know, having that flexibility and autonomy to not actually get too stressed in your day job because you've got the time at home. Whereas setting up Flourish coincided with my daughter starting secondary school, which has allowed me so much more freedom. But to your point, like the journey is the exciting bit. You know, you can just make change, and getting the team's input on stuff as well. This isn't like I say we're going to do this. This is everybody's journey together. And I think for people that are looking to get into a startup, it is fast, it is tough, but how nice to able to impact what you're doing at the start of it, because you'll never get that opportunity, I don't think, when you're 10 years down the line and you're massive.
Yes, exactly. And I'm pleased that you just touched upon different stages in life there as well, and when you can feel like you can launch new things. Because Lou, you have very young children, so out of curiosity, how are you balancing that as well?
Hanging on in there. Literally, right now, my mother-in-law, you probably see the twins like running around the house at the moment. Like my mother-in-law is currently helping at the moment this afternoon. But we set out a business partly to solve some of this problem as well. So myself and my co-founder, she's got her little one Arthur. He is just over 2 now. I've got twins who will be 2 next week. I've also got a 7-year-old. All of our
Wow.
leadership team, pretty much within needi, have got young children, and we are so passionate, huge passionate believers in recruiting and building a team for the right personality, drive, passion, and vision. And if you've got that and you've got people that are hardworking and can achieve their goals, then again, we're just as passionate about the fact that I like walking my daughter to school, at least 3 days a week. I take Wednesday mornings, as I told you, I spend that time with the twins at baby club where I'm rolling around on the floor, having a whale of a time with the kids. And then I'll jump on a meeting with like the CEO of a big financial services company or something. And to me, that is balance, right? Balance, don't get me wrong, it can be tiring, but it's understanding that life and work can work really well together if you are a results orientated person and that you've got the right structure. Interestingly, on the flip side, what I was just following on from what Sarah was saying about the innovation, though, and about the team kind of being able to work fast and challenge, we really, really encourage that at needi. We're all about, make mistakes, please make mistakes and make them quickly, and let us all learn from them quickly as well. Like there's no kind of, nobody's got a fear, I don't think, within our team of sort of trying something new or putting themselves out there, because they know it will be celebrated and encouraged. But when you ask, like when you talk about innovation, what I would say is we are currently going through, when I heard you talk about that question, a very long one about, what was that pivotal moment? I believe we're going through it right now, because we have built this company so quickly and fast with these amazing, passionate people. But in order to scale, like we're now sort of nearly 3 million in revenue, we're about to go to 10 million in revenue very quickly. In order to do that, we have to get some systems and processes in place that really work. So the people that we're looking to hire right now, I want people that are obviously in the tech industry, but I need like real problem solvers that are going to kind of come in, really be organized and do that systems and processes, show us exactly how we can scale to the next level. But, I think it's brilliant if you've got a young family or an older family, or if you work abroad or whatever. That's the beauty of being in this industry, right? You can literally do your job from anywhere around the hours that you need to if you want to.
Yes, I'd love the fact that you touched upon who you're hiring, because it's so important in a startup that you get the right people. It's almost like you don't have the time to hire the wrong people, and they need to know exactly what they're letting themselves in for as well.
Yeah.
We've hired some people before, and myself at other companies as well, where I thought, I don't think you quite knew what you were signing up for. Or maybe sometimes people will think, oh, it's a startup, it's a small company, that's a bit of fun. And then actually you get in and you realise there's nowhere to hide. It is very challenging, but also very rewarding at the same time. And it does take a certain person to be in a startup, and you have to be so careful who you bring in to that team culture, because one person can really upset that. But the ones that get it right are the ones where people like Sarah, like yourself, you stick around those companies that have got it right. Because Lou, you said that culture of not having a fear of trying things new. And I was at a startup that did that, and it was an American startup. And actually, I always wonder if it was just because they were American and they were very like, try things, and it used to be, Kaylee, don't cost us any money, but try things. And, if they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. But I stuck around at that company for a long time because the culture was very much try, test, doesn't work, doesn't matter, we'll move on to something else. But that's something that came from the top down, and it was built, it was amongst the team stayed in the end for decades and decades, and anyone that did leave ended up coming back at some point. It was almost like returning home. But certain companies are very good at that, and they go from startup to a much bigger company with the right team. But they were very, very careful about who they hired. They fired fast as well, I noticed, to make sure that they were very protective of their team if they did have the wrong people in. And some companies are just really good at creating that environment, but it doesn't happen overnight, does it? That's something that you have to work out.
What I've observed since, again, doing this for an awful long time is what's really nice is the early career population all want to get into startups, whereas 20 years ago, everybody wanted to be in a corporate, they want to go home and say, work for Microsoft or work for whoever. And I think on the one hand, that's brilliant, but the negative potentially is it's quite, and I don't know if anyone else has found this, but it's quite glamorized. So I think because of social media, this perception you work in a startup, it's really cool. And of course it can be really cool, but it's really blooming tough, isn't it? And it isn't right for everybody. So I think the hiring piece, it's about transparency at the start. And really, I almost try and put people off a little bit so they really understand what they're getting into. Because for every exciting moment of you get to impact something and we shift and we change, there's another one where there isn't time, there is no process, and it's a balance. So yeah.
I love that, the putting off thing, 100%, do exactly the same. I'm like, I'm saying we've actually really elongated our recruitment process now to try and find the right people. And we all say, you said it yourself there, Sarah, it boils down to personality, because all skills can be taught. And if we want skills enough, we'll teach them. But what we can't teach is that personality, that drive. In our team, we are a very supportive, upbeat bunch of mostly women, actually, and that's kind of what we want to keep doing. But it's so funny because we've made some terrible hires and we've made some brilliant hires, and we've learned our lessons from that. Actually, it was a real pinch me moment last week. We got to go away on our first ever needi retreat, and we went to Malaga for 2 nights with our little dream team of 9 of us. And what we got out of those few days, it was incredible. We came back with everyone. I can't even tell you, the energy, the passion, the alignment. I feel like every single person in the team knows if they want to earn more money, if they want to get to this vision and goal that we all discussed, they're like, you are so in control of that. You've got me and Steph as co-founders that are full cheerleaders. We'll support you to do it because it's good for our business. And we'll find a way to get you there. And that is the difference. It is a bit it's messy, it's gritty, it's hard work. Yes, some days you have to work crazy hours. Sometimes you're pulled into jobs that you definitely don't want to do, all of us included. But to work in a startup and potentially have that power over your career and where you go, that isn't set out like a ladder as it is in other corporates. I think, for me, that's something our team love anyway.
Yes, I love the fact that you said that if they want to earn more money, for instance, they're in control of where they can go and what they can do, because that doesn't suit everybody. And I've had some people say to me, yeah, but why don't you tell me? And you think, no, you tell me, you do it. So it's almost like you say, you do it, you're in control of that. And like you said, sometimes there are no processes in place and you kind of just muddle through, and that's the fun of it. I had a lady this week on our podcast who referred to being in a startup as grueling. And I thought that's the perfect word, because like you both said, when you're trying to put someone off in an interview, it's almost like, by the way, did you know it's grueling? It really is. But I have to hit home as to what you're coming into, and it's going to be so rewarding when this works, but it is going to be a big challenge, and it's almost like you want to prepare someone for what
I love
to
that.
happen.
It's the same as having 2-year-old twins, literally. It is, I would say it's wonderful, but it's relentless.
Yeah, relentless is the word, isn't it?
Love that.
Yeah, and that ties nicely into building resilience, which I wanted to ask you a little bit about, Louise. What are some effective strategies that you've employed to build resilience and maintain momentum during turbulent times in your startup? Obviously, not everything goes right all the time. So, Lou, how have you kind of dealt with that along the way?
Absolutely. I'll be completely brutally honest. You said this is what your group's all about, and people want to hear the real. And we have, like, we've hit rock bottom, both myself and Steph, on this journey. And I would have given up probably a million times over if it wasn't for her, because some of the things that we've had to face and had to get through have been so difficult. Everything from, we've been at it before we raised our investment. Literally, I got to the stage we couldn't afford. I had to take out money to pay my staff for the next month, and there's so many rock bottom moments that we've got to. But throughout every single one of those, me and Seth have always talked to each other about that, right? So we've always had each other to soundboard what's going on, find an alternative, and keep going. I think actually being quite honest and vulnerable in some respects is something that I've had to really learn. As somebody who grew up very independent, I've always done my own thing. I've never liked to ask anybody for help. I've always been very, I'm sure my dad would just say stubborn, but I'd like to say, strong-willed and all these other things. Learning to ask for help and be vulnerable about when something is going wrong has actually led to some of the most transformative conversations, help being given, and everything that has helped me to transform and to get out of those areas. So I don't think resilience necessarily means being all tough, and it doesn't mean everything that you normally associate the word. To me, resilience is giving yourself the tools and the community around you that will allow you to go forward and to survive anything. Because on a personal note, if it had just been me building this business by myself without those people around me, would have given up.
Yes, and it's so good to share the reality of that as well. And like you said, to be vulnerable about your own journey to help other founders along the way, and just the reality of not everything is shiny Instagram and a year later, look how wonderful my business is, and all of the things that happened in between. Obviously, there are lots of challenges along the way, and if you have somebody or a community with you around you to help you, which is something that we really advocate for in our community, just find the right people and find the right support system. Sarah, what about yourself? How have you managed to maintain momentum during turbulent times in your startup?
So I agree with everything Lou said. My Steph is a Susie, actually. And while she's not my business partner in terms of co-founder, she's like my right-hand woman. She's our head of talent, and we've worked together before. We're literally yin and yang in everything. I'm up at 5 and she hates mornings. I'm in bed by 9 and she's like partying till midnight. We're really opposite in our ideas and in a lot of things, and it really makes for having that support. You said surrounding yourself with people that bring different skills, so when the shit hits the fan and something goes wrong, you've got people that you can lean on. I've had times where, like you say, sometimes it's just knackering. It's not that anything has actually gone massively off plan, it's just that you're exhausted. And I remember ringing her one day and I was like, I just need to have a little cry. And then I had a little cry and I was like, I feel better now. And it's just being able to have, I think, the people around you. And for me, being the team know this, but I am a morning person. I don't really know when that started, but I think it's a bit like that airline analogy where you put your oxygen mask on first. And I think having a bit of time for yourself at the start of every day, this is what works for me, because if I get up at 5, no one else in the house is up until at least 6. I have a 1-hour window to I'd like to say do exercise, meditate and write in a journal. I don't. Normally I go through LinkedIn and emails, but I just have that quiet time. And that I think helps set me up for whatever eventuality may hit.
Yes, definitely. And you obviously it's looking after yourself and being mindful of that. I think one of those things as well is that some founders can find themselves stuck in a trap where they can't relinquish control to almost help themselves in that way. So sometimes they say you hire to fill the skills gaps that you can't do, but some founders find that very difficult to relinquish that control and hire somebody else that can take the reins on things that you don't know about. Have you found that yourself of how when something is your baby, how do you entrust somebody else to do that? That's a really difficult one.
It's really tough. I feel like I'm learning every day on this because I 100% have people in the team, as I said, that have skill sets that I do not possess, and I trust them. However, I'm massively a control freak, and I feel like the biggest probably challenge I have right now is I am a founder and an MD. I'm a salesperson. I'm a sales manager. I'm doing like I feel like I'm doing every job, partly because we're still a lean business and it needs to be done, but partly because the control freak in me just wants to make sure, like, we've got a pitch. Okay, I should be on that as well because I'm probably the most likely person to win it, which sounds arrogant. It's not meant like that, but it's just
You're
you don't want to
incredibly
miss
passionate.
any
Yeah.
opportunity. So I've forgotten the question, but that was the answer to what the
No,
question was. I'm
you're
sorry.
absolutely right, because you're incredibly passionate about your own business as
Yeah.
well. That's you want to be on the pitch and you want to be included in that. But you're right, you also have people on your team that can take care of that also for your own mentality to just think there are other people that can do this and it is fine. I can let go of that. But it is a difficult balance always with somebody that has founded a business as that point where you kind of have to really find good people that fill those that skill set.
Definitely.
We've also found as well, it's been a lot about communicating the vision and communicating exactly why and who needi is. Because I felt exactly the same as Sarah, felt exactly the same where you're like, no, it's my baby. I want to make sure that I remember thinking anything that goes out externally about the company, I want eyes on it because that's me, that's my baby. I don't want a LinkedIn post or something to go out that doesn't, and then actually you're like, well, that comes down to how well I can communicate what our brand values are and who we are. And don't get me wrong, I don't think I'll ever feel super settled about it. But just like Sarah, I'm learning to do it. And you're right, as you hire those people that will really, that really understand and buy into the whole story and the value of your company, I feel like they're the most, to me, that's the most vital and useful thing in a new employee is actually, does that person really want to work for us and why? Because if they do, what they're going to be able to deliver, and they're never going to stop trying to learn, and they're going to be one of those people that I will be able to offload and give extra work to and offer them a quick kind of career path to wherever they want to go, because I know they're just going to keep grabbing it and doing it because they're passionate.
Grabbing hold and learning to retain those people and how to do that. Which is also a learning curve on how to retain people and a whole other webinar that we should host. Sarah, I wanted to ask you, in your experience, what are some key factors that contribute to creating a supportive and inclusive culture for women in tech startups?
Yeah. So again, I think part of this is dependent almost on the women and where they are in their journey. I think transparency is really important. And having that sort of open door policy where people feel that they can come to you. We said right at the start, like if people don't see other people like them, that's a challenge. So I think visibility of females, I make a conscious effort of Flourish, and a bit like it sounds like with you, Lou, we're more women than we are men. In fact, the guys the other week were like, you're going to hire some more guys now? They're suddenly feeling outnumbered. I was like, maybe. But I liked the fact that we've got women that are in the sales department, that are in the talent department, that are in the training delivery department. So in every division of the business, there's females that other women can see. And I think because we hire a lot of early career talent, because that's the nature of what we do, I feel a bit like a mother hen at times. But I think one of the important things is to be properly inclusive. You need to look at these people as individuals. And that sounds obvious, but you in these meetings, you're looking at your P&L, you're looking at headcount. To me, it's not a headcount. These are people. These are somebody's daughters that I am looking after. And I think about my 12-year-old and in 10 years when she's in employment, and I think how I would want her to be treated in the workplace is I feel like I care deeply about these individuals and I want to make sure that they have the support, that they can trust me, they know I've got their back, that I'll give them guidance. And then I think as we get older and we go through the journey, you want to know that if you've got a person with children, that they've got that flexibility. Like, yes, of course, take your kid to school and pick up and do that. Or, you want someone going through menopause and they're, wanting time to, everybody at different stages needs different things. The key is to act on what you say, not just we have these policies. You need to demonstrate it through behavior. You need to show trust. You need to feel like, or they need to feel like they can talk to you. And so that would be, I think, what we're doing.
Yes, definitely. And you're right to actually act on that behavior, not just the policies. It's something I've mentioned on our podcast a lot. Someone right at the start, I think it was season 1, said to me, don't you think that sometimes companies will just launch a Slack channel for women in tech? And then they're like, check, I'm done. We have our Women in Tech Slack channel and that's it. But actually, it's how you feel, how you come to work every day, how you feel when you really need to ask for that flexibility, and whether or not it's okay. Or at the time when you ask, I need to go off and do something. I went through a phase where I was looking after a parent, and I had flexibility at the company that I was at, thankfully, but I actually ended up moving companies from a previous company because I was a bit like, well, in this strange time in my life, I need some flexibility to look after someone. So it depends on which stage you're at, but I found myself at a company where I was like, I can't actually be as flexible as I need to be, and sadly, I ended up moving and taking a sideways step to until I got through that time in my life. But you don't want people leaving because suddenly they feel like, well, you said on your job advertisement that you're quite flexible, and then actually when it comes down to it, you're not. So.
Yeah, I think as well, you want to, as a female, you've got to pull people. I forgot the saying, but like, when you rise, you pull people up with you. Because in my last business, I was the first person ever in the sales team to work part-time. And there was, and it was like my bosses at the time were brilliant, but there was definitely some cynicism about how much I could do and whether it would work. And I went on to be the top performer there for 9 years, part-time over the full-timers. But what was the best bit was how many other women after me, when they went on and had kids, also got 3 and 4 day weeks, because I'd proven the model and then I brought others with me. And I think that's really important as well.
Yes, definitely.
So that's amazing
I
to
can
hear.
see you nodding, Lou.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, just showing that it can be done. Lou, I wanted to ask you quick. I can see questions coming in our Q&A, so I don't want to run out of time. But I wanted to ask you quick. How do you balance the need for rapid adaptation to market changes with maintaining a clear strategic direction for your startup? Gosh, that was wordy. But how do you balance that? It's very difficult in a startup when you want to change direction with the way that the market is going. So how do you mentioned it a little bit earlier about keeping a clear vision for your team as well, so they know your vision and your mission. How do you balance all of that?
Again, it is. And this sounds really airy fairy. I'd love to be able to give you a better answer, but sometimes it really is a bit of a gut feel about things.
Yeah.
When we started Needi, it was going to be predominantly D2C, right? It was all about, we just wanted to make this amazing gift matching algorithm that was going to just make every single person, whenever you bought a gift, it was just going to make it the most beautiful experience and wonderful. But guess what? Customer acquisition for D2C is really hard, isn't it? And actually, we realized very quickly that corporates and first we thought it was SMEs, then we thought it was medium-sized companies, and we realized it's the corporates that actually really need to make their staff and everyone feel valued as well through gifting too. So yeah, we've adapted, and the way that we've continued to adapt is we always first of all set out what's that scope. Okay, so what is it that we're trying to achieve? Let's put this through. Can we do it? Who's going to be involved? What's it going to cost? And then it's like, do you know what, guys? If that outweighs the other one, let's go. Let's do an experiment. Let's see if it succeeds. And a bit like you were saying earlier, let's make sure that we don't bankrupt ourselves doing that experiment or that test. And if the answer is going to give us a potential gain, let's adapt. Let's go for it. I think with our team, I kind of alluded it to before, because we're all a team of like real passionate go-getters that want to achieve things. When it comes to like adapting to stuff, we've almost got the possibility of almost adapting too much, right? Like we could always be one of those teams that would over adapt, which is why we've pulled it back, and we now have, at the very basic, a scope document, a scope meeting before we start going off and adapting to the whole world.
Sarah, have you found something similar about over adapting, and you can go a bit wild sometimes and think actually we we tried too many things, or some company, I've worked at a company where we went too wild, and also we hired too fast was the other thing, and we adapted too quickly, and that was not a good move.
Yeah, it's chicken and egg sometimes in the startup, isn't it? Because whether it's product or whether in our case it's like we've got the opportunities and then we need more talent team to find more people, and then you don't want that, and so you need to be super flexible. I think Lou, you touched on it. It's about remembering your purpose, remembering the why, because if that's the vision and that's always what you're focused on, it doesn't matter. You can scrap the plan and try the plan and go a different route. It's just remembering the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing and accepting that, sometimes it doesn't go in the direction of travel that you were aiming, but that's okay. And I think I'm still getting used to that bit because I'm quite a planner. So I'm used to like, I want to know if I do A, I get B. And yet sometimes you don't do, you get something very different, and you've just got to be super flexible.
Yes. And that actually leads into some of the questions in our Q&A about, Sarah, you said a few times on this that you're learning along the way, and that it has been a learning curve for both of you. Someone has said in here, hi both, thanks for holding this session. I've always had a dream of being my own boss and starting my own business. Is there something you wish someone had told you before you became a founder?
I'll let Lou, sorry, do you want to go or?
No, you carry on if you like.
I was just going to simply say, I wouldn't say this is what someone has told me, but what I've been doing a lot of, which I would encourage, is I listen to a lot of podcasts. I try and walk into work in the morning, and I listened to one literally 2 days ago, and I just thought the woman's so brilliant. I connected with her and asked if I could pick her brain, and she replied to me. So I just think that would be my tip: is maybe be a bit braver. And just because somebody's in this position, don't assume, sometimes they will be too busy, but listen, educate, and then reach out and ask. That would be my 2 pennies worth.
Yes.
That's brilliant. That's how we ended up getting our CMO that way. He was the ex chief marketing officer at eBay, John Lewis, not on the high street. And just what you said there, Sarah, like we absolutely ballsy went for it, and just like, do you know what? That's who we want. We can't afford to pay him anything yet, but in a few years' time, we might want some equity and some money then. And he's been with us ever since. So I absolutely second that advice. With mine, the advice that I wish that I had been told is I actually wish that I'd been told to trust my gut and my instincts a bit more. Going back to everything we've been talking about on this call about having that feeling of, should I definitely be in the tech industry? Like I don't have the tech background. What that actually caused at the beginning was I asked too many people's opinions. Interestingly, if I did that thing where I went out to so many experienced tech people to be like, oh, what should I do? I'm growing this team and I should do this. And oh my God, I literally got like 10 different responses. Like I'd go with like one question and then I would literally get overwhelmed by all this different advice. But you know what? My gut was always the right answer. I just didn't realize that my gut was made up of all my own experiences and learnings that I've got going along the way. So even though everybody says, and I do stand by it, I have the best mentors, I have the best people that I can go to. My community is incredible and it is so important. But don't underestimate. I wish I'd been told not to underestimate my gut when it came to the final big decisions.
Yes, brilliant advice. You're all right. Sometimes we say surround yourself with support and community, but if you've gone out and you've asked too many people, sometimes too many cooks, and you just are paralyzed in making a decision and what to do. That's brilliant advice. Someone has asked you in here as well. You spoke a little bit about work-life balance, and someone has said you both mentioned that it's nice to have a work-life balance. How do you ensure that this translates through to your employees? Sarah, you touched upon that a little bit. I suppose it's just like you said, actually making sure that you act when somebody asks you for flexibility.
I think flexibility is really important, but also it's being honest when you're interviewing about the expectations, because we have flexibility with my team, like if they need to work from home, if they want to do different things, that's one thing. But I always say to everyone, and I feel like I'm going to be judged with this, but because I'm up so early and my mind's like going into overdrive, I can accidentally ping out a group WhatsApp at 7 a.m. because if I've been up 2 hours, I'm thinking of it. And I always say to them, I do not expect anybody to ever reply to me out of hours, but just know that that is sometimes where I come up with things. And I probably need to get a bit better, because I think there's a difference between what you put on yourself and what you should expect of your team. And if you don't allow the team balance, they're going to burn out and they're not going to be happy and they're not going to stay. So yeah, I think it's balancing, it's practicing what you preach a little bit, but also being really honest about what you expect and how you are when you interview, so there's no random surprise. That would be probably what I'd say.
Oh, the practice what you preach, definitely. I
Oh,
also,
isn't it?
I'm really bad with holiday, and I know I'm really bad at it, and it's not a very good example for everybody else. But I know if I'm on holiday and I'm not abroad and I'm at home, I'm really bad at still accepting calls and doing like the odd call in the afternoon run. I'm like, oh, it's a prospect, I'd love to talk to them. And I'm still on it, even though it's my holiday. And I always make sure I say to everyone else on the team, you are not expected to do that. I do that because I'm in the area and I might be at home and I'm free, but you are not expected to still take calls on your holiday. Go away, log off for wherever you are, even if you are at home, and don't feel like you have to do that. But there is a balance, because I know also it's practiced by behaviour and I shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Yeah. Our team,
It's so hard, isn't it? I was going to say, like my staff I would be exactly the same as you, and she is fierce about my holiday. Like she actually stops people from contacting me, and she would literally protect. She's like fiercely protective of my time off because she knows what I'm like, and that's filtering down to the team. So it's really interesting now that when people go on holiday in the team, you can see the rest of the sales team or the rest of the ops team, like almost like someone's like, right, this person's going on holiday. Let's make sure we do everything we need so they can't get bothered. And it does become a bit of a team effort because, like yourself, I wouldn't naturally be able to switch off. And I actually need that team to kind of like go around me to do it. And I think the final thing I want to say on that point as well is it's so individual. So for me, you mentioned in the morning, Sarah, you're a real early person. You've mentioned as well that you do stuff on holiday. For me, it's like I really like that period normally in between sort of like 4 and 6. That's my time with the kids. So do you know what? I'll do some emails later on in the evening. We've got other people in the team that have got different family and caring things. So do you know what? We'll adapt to those as well. But it's taking everybody as an individual, isn't it, to offer the flexibility they need.
it's getting to know your team, and
Yeah.
that's it, and then what works for them, what they need, and being supportive of that to get the best from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And Lou, someone has put a question in here. They've said to you, you mentioned being able to talk to and rely on your co-founder. I've recently launched my business, but I'm on my own. Do you have any advice on who I can talk to, share things with?
Absolutely. I would highly, highly recommend joining. I mean, obviously, you've got groups, of course, like this, where you could potentially find someone through networking, which I think is definitely a way that it could really work. And I know other founders who found either co-founders or they found employees or they found like confidants within these groups. I also would say that through accelerators as well. I told you about the Founder Institute one that I joined, but I also joined the NatWest one as well. I'm going to be honest with you, we joined it for the free office space because we thought that would be, a really great opportunity. We ended up getting over £1 million in investment through somebody they introduced me to. And I would say that I found my confidant, who's actually the accelerator leader. Him and I will now just go for coffees together, and he's been amazing too. So he's almost my second step, to be quite honest with you. So I would highly recommend going and joining groups and accelerators. But the key is it has to be, it might start online, but then you are going to have to go and do it in person to kind of build up that relationship, I would suggest.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant advice. And also I've got a couple of more questions in here to finish. I can see Connie Foster, who is an advocate of ours. Hi Connie, we always see her on our webinars. She has asked, I love the energy of a startup live, but I do find it hard to keep up with the constant changes. Do you have any tips on staying grounded and prioritizing when everything feels urgent? Sarah, you touched upon that because you said, I feel like I'm doing a bit of everything.
Yeah.
How do you stay grounded when that's happening?
That is I don't actually know if I know how to answer that yet, because we're literally 9 months into our journey. So we're a lot earlier than Lou. And I feel like we're so supercharged because we're so early. I don't know if I don't know what advice I'd give at this point, but I guess later down the line, yeah, it's just about you try and put structure. I think where you're at now, Lou, you said earlier about trying to put those processes in place. I guess the earlier you can do that, you have the foundations then, and it's a little bit more constant and a bit more secure. Whereas where I am, we're not quite there. So it is a bit all over the shop at times.
Agreed. Having that in place makes a huge difference. But I was just smiling because I was thinking I'm literally recruiting a Connie like right now, in as much as actually the fact that you feel that way is the same as me feeling out of place in the tech industry initially. It's like you need all sorts. Like we have in our team, I think Lizzie's probably really good at it actually over time. She's got very good now at pushing back and saying, do we need to change? Is that changing for change's sake? Is that in line with the scope? Is that? And actually, don't underestimate the fact that that could potentially be one of your superpowers in a startup environment, could be the fact that that's how you feel. And if you can communicate that in a way to the company that you're working for to say, do you know what? Love a startup, love all this, but one of my superpowers is the fact that if you're going off piste, I can probably help to align you because I'll feel that way. So I suppose I'm just saying maybe, I don't know how grounded it would necessarily make you feel, but you could definitely use that for a force for good in a changing startup.
Yes, definitely. Something that we have found at She Can Code as well, and that touches upon that vision that you spoke about, Lou, and being clear on that, is sometimes we felt a bit like we could do lots of different things and pick up lots of different things. And actually, when we started testing and checking the data every week, it was much easier to be able to say, do I really need to put my energy into that? Because it's not bringing us anything. So when we started testing and then looking at the results it was actually giving us, it was easier for us to just shut down certain things so we could prioritize the things that were actually moving us forward, moving our mission and vision forward, rather than all of these other things that we were all sort of running around thinking, let's try everything and do everything. So when we really became focused on our mission, that was so much easier to try and just negate the things that we really don't need to be doing as well. Last question. I've spent the last 8 years in corporate and I'm considering a role in a startup. So this has come at a great time. What's the biggest mindset shift I need to prepare for?
So hard. I'm looking at you, Sarah, because I feel like you've done a bit of both, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I did leave what was, as I say, a huge corporate last year and start from scratch. And I think the first thing I would say is it's never as daunting as you make it out in your head. Like it's just not as sort of scary as I'd almost thought it might be. I think recognize that some of the things that and like things that may potentially annoy you in a corporate don't just vanish in a startup because they get replaced with other ones. So it was annoying that it took so long to get a contract back, but now it's annoying that there's nobody that does contracts. You have to do it yourself. So it's like swings and roundabouts. I think the mindset is just be prepared for it to be full on initially, but to settle and just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
That's brilliant. And I love what you're saying there about there is no one to do the contracts now. So you're right, that mindset shift is probably going to be along the lines of when you see a problem, you can't just look at that problem from your specific job description. Sometimes you have to look at that problem within the company as a company-wide problem and what are the more creative ways that you could do to fix that problem. So mindset, it might be that you're kind of like turning on your creative brain a little bit more potentially. And my only other thing I would say is, I think when you're going into a startup, I'm sure you've probably done this already, but like really quiz the founders or quiz the leadership team that you're speaking to about their values, about their mindset. Like I know that when you're first joining a startup, it's, the interview process is the other way around, but I would say like because you guys will be so close knit joining it that early phase, like you want to be completely certain that they hold the same values and vision that suits you in your life. So I'd say, yeah, it's not so much of a mindset shift, but I think it's definitely worth going through that.
Yes, I love that. And just to add to that, I think the biggest mindset shift probably is knowing or realizing that there's no one to help you sometimes, and you have to get used to that. There's no kind of like in a corporate, you're looking behind you like, who is there to ask and other departments to help me? And it's actually are you ready to take on the responsibility of finding the answers to things that really need to be solved, but you're that person that has to go and find that answer. There is nobody else that can help you, and whether you're Googling it, ChatGPT becomes your best friend and putting it out to communities and asking them, but you have to be that person that steps in to do it, because it is quite a baptism of fire when you think, oh my God, there's nobody here. There's no one else here yet, and we will get there. But for the time being, you are filling those gaps. So, ladies, we are already out of time. I could keep going, but we are out of time, and I'm going to let our attendees go. So thank you so much to Sarah and Lou for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to both of you.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
That's been brilliant. Thank you.
For everybody joining us, as always, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already joined the She Can Code community, go over to shecancode.io to check out our free blog, resources on there. Next webinar is in August, and you'll find details on there. But do join our community platform as well to make sure that you connect and support other people within there. There is a free mentoring program, awards program, and everything else to support you and your network. So please do go over and take a look. But in the meantime, thank you so much, ladies, and we will see all of you on the next one. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.